everything you are listening to. You are absolutely listening to the George Espinlove Show, coming to you live from the Funny Farm. Now, with no further ado, here comes Georgie!
Oh, you just make me feel so warm and fuzzy inside and out. We have a packed out house here in the studio tonight, and we are anticipating a great show. To all my friends down the street, around the corner, across this great nation, and around the world, I welcome you to the George Espinlove Show that comes to you Monday through Friday in a place called Our World. We have no idea where that is. We don't really care where that is. All we know is it's safer in our world than it is in yours. And yes, we broadcast from the Funny Farm radio studio right here on the grounds of the Funny Farm. And everyone here has a voice. Everyone here has a job. Everyone here is just as loony as the day is long. And we want you to be just as loony as the day is long, too. So come on in. Let your hair down. Forget about what people says. Forget about what they think. Forget about everything. Just come in and express yourself and become a full-fledged loon. We have with us tonight a man, and I've been anticipating tonight, because we've had this scheduled, 3, 4, 5 weeks, somewhere around there. This man has done so much in his lifetime. And he has done so much that friends and family have asked him to write all these things down. And he did. He wrote an autobiography entitled Titus, the life story of Dr. Titus Plomaritis. Wow. And he's gonna share with us some of those exciting things. We want you to write this down, stamp it on your forehead, write it on somebody else's forehead. Here is our call-in number for comments and questions, 302-497-3414. That's 302-497-3414. You can call from any calling device anywhere in the world, 302-497-3414, or George.Espinlove, Espenlaub. And that's on Skype. So, we're going to bring Dr. Titus on, and I know that you are going to enjoy him on the air tonight. I'm trying to think and talk at the same time, and you know that don't work for me. Dr. Titus, thank you so much for being on the George Espinlove Show.
You're welcome, George. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I'm going to try this one more time. Dr. Titus Plomaritis.
Oh, you got another A, George.
I got another A. Oh, yep. I'm going to stop right there. Because I'll mess it. Sure, I'll mess it up. I know I'll mess it up the third time.
No, you remember what I told you. Just think of your inflammation of your plumber. You'll never get it wrong. Plomaritis.
Oh, my goodness. It is a delight to have you, sir.
Thank you.
I wonder if you would, first of all, tell us where we can get the book Titus.
Well, I'll tell you, you can buy it anywhere. You can buy it at Barnes & Noble. You can buy it at Amazon.com. But I would prefer if you would send a donation to the Plomaritis Family Foundation, and I will send a personalized autograph book to anyone that sends me a $40 check, not to me, but to the foundation. It's Plomaritis Family Foundation, 94 Skyview Drive. That's not Hollywood now. That's in Pelham, New Hampshire, 03076. And in case you forget that, go on the webpage, www.Titus Plomaritis, PLOMARITIS.com, and it'll give you all that information. And you can also see a 2-minute trailer. How's that, George? Okay?
Yes, sir. That's fine.
Okay.
We put your website up on our show page, a link to your website, and we put the trailer up there too, so people could see it during the day.
Thank you, George.
You have done a magnificent job writing this book. How long did it take you to do this?
Well, from the beginning, it was just about 7 years, maybe a little bit longer. Can I tell you how it started, George?
Sure.
Well, let me tell you. My 2 daughters are educators, and one of my daughters lives in Alaska. And for 6 months, in the past 5 years, 6 months they were in Alaska, and 6 months they were in New Zealand. But while she came home to visit one summer, and she took me by the hand, like when she's a retired school teacher from Alaska now. She took me by the hand like one of her second-grade students, and she took me to the Apple store. And she gave me a real good con story, like she's talking to a kid. She said, "Dad, you know all those boxes you have downstairs with all those negatives, 35-millimeter slides, and photographs? I had boxes. I must have had thousands, George, because I was a professional photographer, too." She said, "You can put those all in the computer, and you can categorize them, and you'll be there for life. So when you're gone, we'll have them, and our kids will have them." So I went with her, and I went in and I bought a computer. That was about 7.5 years ago, and that's how it all started. And while I'm in there, taking my one-to-one lessons, I did that. It took me almost 2 years just to get all the photographs and the negatives installed. The people that were training me, they call them professional trainers. I call them professors. They used to work with me for an hour. That's all they allowed you at first. And as time went on, they say, "Well, why don't you come in a little early and stay a little bit late?" So I was getting in 2 hours, and then before you know it, it was 2.5 hours. I hope they don't get in trouble by my saying this.
No.
But anyway, after I did this for about maybe 2.5, 3 years, and I was telling them stories when I had the picture, they would say, "Gee, that's a nice-looking picture." So I'd give them the story that went with it. And after they heard this for 6 or 8 months, they said, "Hey, Doc, you should write a book." I said, "What are you?" I thought they were just blowing smoke. So then my kids start telling me. Then my grandkids start telling me. They say, "Hey, Papu, tell me that story about you jumping off the roof into the snow pile." Or tell me the story about beating that guy that had muscles coming out of his ears in that paratrooper story. The kids just keep pumping me up, so I said, "Gee, maybe I will start writing it." And I'm doing one-finger jobs for about 2 more years. And at the Apple store, would you believe this? These guys all pitched in, and they said, "We're going to buy you a Mavis Beacon typing course, Titus. We're sick of seeing you typing with one finger." So I ended up typing every word in the book, and I type about 25 words a minute. I make very few mistakes, but I've enjoyed doing it. It's been one great journey from the beginning right up until the day I launched the book.
We and I forgot to tell you before we went on the air, Dr. T, when we get a call, I'll answer that call, and what will happen is that'll put you on hold. But
okay.
I'll tell you when we get the call, and then I'll move that person in the proper slot, and we'll all hook up, and everybody will be able to hear everybody else. We're going to open the phone lines up here soon, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, here's the number, 302-497-3414. 302-497-3414. We'll open the phone lines up. If you have comments or questions, just feel free to ringy-ding us, and we'll answer, and you can ask your question. What was your life like growing up? You grew up during the Depression, right?
Yes. Actually, I'll give you a little brief here on that one. When you open the book on the very first chapter, it's on page 4, I believe. I forget. I know it's at the beginning. There was a picture at the South Common. I was born in Lowell, Massachusetts, and I was one of 7 kids. I'm the third oldest. And on the South Common was only about, maybe 2 football fields from the cold water flat that I was born in. So we would go there on a Sunday, probably every other Sunday, and you could buy ice cream cones for a nickel, I think it was then. That was a long time ago, because I was born September 6, 1929. And I relate that date because it will come into play several times in the course of the journey. But it was a great experience for me. I was born right on top of a market. It's called Pioneer Market, I think. And the people that owned the building also owned the market. I even remember the name. It was the Silver Brothers. Danny Silver was the guy that owned the store. It's funny, as I was writing this book, these names kept popping into my head, George. It was very interesting because I don't have the greatest memory in the world. But as I'm starting this thing, when I went way back and I'm starting it, and I'd be moving along, and all of a sudden the name would pop in my head. Like the other day I was talking, somebody was relating to my wife, Claire, and I said, gee, when she was growing up, they said she looked like Debbie Reynolds. Because somebody asked, they said, if they ever make a movie of this thing, Titus, who's going to play your wife? So I said, Debbie Reynolds. I don't even know if she's still alive. I'm sorry if I got sidetracked on your question, George.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You and the missus have been married for what, 62 years, 61 years?
It'll be 62 years this December 1st. Now, George, every time you come up with something like that, I can give you a reason why. Would you like to hear the reason?
Sure.
Okay. We're going to be jumping ahead and coming back. When you ask me another question, I'll go backwards. But right now, this is appropriate. When I got through playing football at high school, I got a scholarship at Boston University. And the football coach, his name was Bustinelli. And he was the only coach ever in the history of professional or college football that coached a college and a professional team at the same time. Someday, later on, I'll explain. I don't want to divert too far. But it was a no-no to get married when you're playing on Bustinelli's team. So at the end of my 3rd year, we were engaged, and I said to Claire, I said, we can't get married during the summer. We can't get married during the season. So as soon as the football season's over in the 3rd year, and even if Bustinelli takes my scholarship away, we're going to get married. She says, okay. So we set the date for December 1st, 1951. Now, that would have been 49, would have been my freshman year, 50 my sophomore. So it was the end of my junior year. And it's interesting. So we made it December 1st, and sure in hell, I knew that. As soon as I got back to football, Bustinelli started getting on my case. He said to me, you already lost a step, Titus. Because they used to say I was the fastest guy out there, and I had quick legs, and I could cut and go. He said, I can already see you're going to hurt the team. So that's how it makes it, if you're going 51, this year would be, 62 or 63 years this year. I used to be pretty good at math, but I seem to be losing a little bit.
That's amazing. And that's not bad for a girl that told her dad, I'm not going to marry him. Dad, I'm only going to the prom with him, huh?
Oh, Jesus, that's another one. It's a good time to enter that story, Josh. When I came back from the Army, I was in the paratroopers, and when I get back, it would probably, if I relate that from the beginning, I'll make a good story for you. Let me tell you that one. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, and I was 17 years of age, we already told a story about my father trying to take me out of school at 14, So the headmaster knew that I didn't connect with my family life at home. So they were recruiting. They came to the high school. These are the recruiters, the U.S. Army recruiters. They came to the high school and they said, we're looking for juniors and seniors. I was a junior at that time, and I just turned 17, around 17 years of age. They said, we're looking for juniors and seniors to enlist for 18 months, and you will get a college education, and you get the GI Bill of Rights. So Ray Sullivan, who I actually looked at as my second father, I said, he called me in his office, and he said, Titus, he said, this may be a great opportunity. He says, I know how much difficulty you have at home in trying to stay in school. He said, this may be just what you need. He said, you'll get a proper discipline in the military, and it's not going to be long. And this is where the age group comes into fact, George. My date of birth is September 6th. The school year starts on September 1. So by going in at 17 years of age, I would be coming back, and I would be going back to school in September 6th. And I would only be 18 years of age when the school year began, September 1. That means I would be able to graduate with the graduating class in the spring of 1949, and I would be eligible for all athletic events during that time. That's why that age bracket comes into play. Mm-hmm. Now, where was I when I got distracted?
I think we was headed for your wife's for your wife. Wait, I'll tell you what, we're two good ones together. I'll tell you. We were headed.
Got me back on track. I know where I'm at.
Okay, now. I'm glad I could help.
When I got back from the paratroopers, I went to what they call the Hoodsie in Lowell, Massachusetts. They had the Immaculate Conception Church auditorium, where every Friday there was a Hoodsie dance, and all the kids from the Lowell High School and the Keith Academy School would all go over there to dance. So here I am. Now I'm coming back as a veteran of the U.S. Army paratroopers. I just had service in Japan. So I'm going over there. I figure, geez, I'm a big shot now. I got my uniform on. I got my boots all shined up. I'm going to go over there and make a big hit. So I went to the dance with a couple of my buddies that I grew up with on Gorham Street that were in school. And they said, they took me there. They told me what to expect. So I saw a little cute little number over in the corner with her girlfriend. So I said, wow. I said, who's that cute little chick? So this kid named Bootsy Correa, he was like an encyclopedia when it came to who's who. He'd say to me, Titus, he said, that's Claire Smokey Ebert. Her nickname is Smokey. He said her father is a professional boxer. He had 105 professional fights. She lives on Aiken Avenue. His pool room is on Aiken Avenue, and he gives me the whole lineup. So I walk over there like a hot shot now, and I walk over and I said, could I have this dance? She looked me right in the face. She said, no. I thought it was going to be an easy mark, but Christ, she was tough. So the next stage now, I said to Bootsy Corey, my friend, I said, look, I just got a job selling Watkins products, going door to door. Tell me where she lives now, and I'll go over there Saturday. I'll shine my boots. I'll put on the only necktie I got, and I'll go over and I see if I can get into the house. Maybe I can get her father to buy something, or so I can get in, at least get the chance to meet her. So I did this. I got my little attaché case with all the supplies, the household supplies, and I walk over. It's a Saturday morning. It's nice and sunny, and there's a screen door, and the kitchen door is open. So I knock on the screen door, and her dad comes out. He's got a T-shirt on, and he's kind of a little bit overweight. And he comes out. He said, can I do something for you, son? And I said, yes. I said, I'm your door-to-door Watkins salesman. I said, and I have some outstanding specials today. Could I come in and show them to you? So he opens the screen door. He says, come in. Now I walk inside, and there's just 4 daughters. They're all standing next to the table with those big curlers in their hair, and I see little Claire. She's the one on the end. She's the small one. So I open my case, and I gave him the best possible pitch you could ever get. I sold him 2 bottles of coconut oil shampoo, and he didn't have 3 hairs on his head. I mean, you had to be a hell of a salesman now to sell a guy with no hair 2 bottles of coconut oil shampoo. And I find out later, he said to the gals, he said, look, anybody who's got the balls to come around here door to door selling stuff, he deserves a sale. So that was his philosophy, and that's the way he talked to his kids. Anyway, the next time I see her now, I said, I'm going to go there next week. I'm going to practice my jitterbugging, because she really could dance well, and she could jitterbug well. And when I was in the service, I used to go to those different halls where they had the, I forget, the PX they call them, mm-hmm. and they had volunteer girls come in to dance with the soldiers. So I learned how to do the jitterbug, I learned how to do the foxtrot, and then they had the big bands come in, like Glenn Miller would come in, so I learned how to dance with his band, then Gene Krupa with the jitterbug, so I felt I could dance as well as anybody. So then I figured after a couple of weeks I go back, and I finally convinced her to dance with me, and we got on the floor, and I had my zoot suit with my peg pants on this time, and I get her over there on the floor, and we started really moving, like a couple of real hot shots. And I kind of connected a little bit with it. Now, to get back to the original question, I'm getting there, George, and here I'm coming there now. I got elected as a senior class president. My Bootsy Courier, my friend, became my campaign manager in high school. He said, Titus, I got a bunch of your gang from the South Common want you to run for president. I said, I don't want to be the president. He said, come on, Titus, you'll be a good president. He said, you're a military guy, and you can probably give us a hell of a good senior prom. I said, oh, okay. So these guys put on a campaign for me. They get me elected. Now I go to Claire, and I said, Claire, would you like to go to the senior prom with me? She said, no. I said, Jesus, please, what the hell do I have to do? So I asked her 2 or 3 times, and then finally her girlfriend said, hey, Claire, are you crazy? This guy's the president of senior class. He's a football star. So she starts to reconsider. And then she said, well, I'm going to have to ask my father. And she goes home and she asks her father. She said, this is what she tells me. She said, I won't ask my father. He said, senior prom, what's that? He said, that's a dance. And she said, don't worry, Dad, it's chaperone, and I'll meet curfew. I'll be home as soon as it's over, and nobody fools around there. Nobody jumps in the back seat of cars. We're all going to be chaperoned, and we'll get home. I'll get home in time. So he finally said, well, who are you going to go with? She said, Titus Plomaritis. He said, what the hell kind of a name is that? And she said, he's a Greek boy. He said, don't they have any French boys? And she said, Dad, I'm only going to the prom with him. I'm not going to marry him. And that's where that line came in.
Hey, Bookie was a pretty good guy to have around, huh?
Oh, Bootsy, yeah. Oh, I could never forget him. As a matter of fact, he's one of the first guys to buy one of my books. Well, he said, Titus, I got to get a book. He called me. So I went over to his house, and we had a nice chat, and we reminisced all those stories. He said, I told him, I said, Bootsy, a lot of these stories are in the book, especially the roller skating story where I fractured my collarbone there on Summer Street. Oh, yes, there's so many great stories, and I can almost recite them all for you, George.
Your father was from Greece. Your mom was from Greece, right?
Yes. If that's a lead, I can fill the answers for you.
Okay, go ahead.
My father came from an island in northern Greece, and he immigrated to the United States when he was 35 years of age. His name was Demosthenes Plomaritis. And he came from the island of Plomata. So I think that everybody over on that island must have had some kind of a connection with Plomaritis or Plum or something. Anyway, my mother came from Athens, and she immigrated when she was only an infant. And they had an arranged marriage. Now, I don't know whether that started when he was in Greece or when he was here, because it was a year later. He was 36, and she was either 17 or going on 18 when they got married. And that'll answer that question for you as to where they came from. And that's probably where he had that old-fashioned trait. I think I'd like to just explain that a little bit, if I may, George. Is that okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay. He only read the Greek Bible and the Greek newspaper. He was a very religious guy, and all the boys have biblical names like St. Titus. I'm a saint if you want to get to it. St. Timothy, St. George, St. Anthony, St. David. We all have biblical names. And he was extremely honest, but he was mean. And he didn't spare the cord or the strap, because I got that strap on my butt many times. Mm-hmm. And many times my mother had to come in and intervene because he didn't know when to stop when he felt you were wrong. And he always found a reason for it. He said, that's what it says in the Bible, Titus. You did this and you have to be punished. So he was very biblical, even when it came to the punishment. And then on top of that, whenever I did something naughty or bad, and that was a lot when I was a juvenile, because if I wasn't on the playground, I was getting in trouble. And he'd say to me, you got to come to the barber shop and you got to sit down in that chair. There was a little rocking chair next to his first. He had a barber to work for him that was a Turk, and he spoke Greek and English, so he was more or less his interpreter. But my father never wanted to learn English. And when people come into the barber shop to get a haircut, and they would say, Denny, because the name of the barber shop was Denny's. It was a short name for Demosthenes, I guess. And they would say, yes, gee, your son scored 2 touchdowns yesterday. And he'd clip his hair and he'd smile and say, yes, yes. But he had no idea what the hell they were talking about because he never read the paper. If you read the American paper, their little son, they had all my write-ups in there. Because I ended up being the highest scorer in the state of Massachusetts in Class A football. And he never went to a game. He never saw me play. But like I said, he did have some good traits. He was not a womanizer. He was not a drinker other than a glass of wine probably before dinner. He had Bible meetings in our living room once a week, and he was very honest. I'll tell you an honest story. I used to shine shoes in the barber shop. I think a lot of kids started shining shoes when about my age. I started about 5 or 6 years of age, and one Saturday morning, he wrote a note and gave me a paper bag with some money in it to go to the bank. It was only like, Christ, 150 yards from the barber shop, to go to the bank and give this to the teller. So I went to the bank, and I gave the teller the bag with the money in it, and he gives me the change that my father requested, and he put a piece of tape on the bag, and I go back to the barber shop and give it to my father. He opens the bag, and he has Charlie the barber write another note and send me back to the bank again, because there was an extra roll of quarters in that bag. That's how honest the man he was. Mm. You're not going to see that. So let me carry this just a little bit further. Mm-hmm. I was on a radio station in Lowell, Massachusetts in January. And it's right across the street from the same bank that I went to 75 years ago. So I walked into the bank before I went up to the radio station. I walked in there and I said, can I speak to the president or somebody in authority here? And the tellers took me into this guy's office. His name was Sean. I think his last name was Kelly or something like that. His first name was Sean anyway. Very nice guy. Nice smile on his face. He said, what can I do for you, young man? And here I am. I'm 83 years old. I said, I wanted to come in here just to find out if the bank was still in the same place, and I can see it is. And I wanted to find out, I don't believe that the man that I spoke to 75 years ago is still alive. So he said to me, what are you talking about? So I had a book in my hand. I brought one in that I was going to bring up to the studio. Mm-hmm. I opened the page to where the bank was, and I said, see this page here? This is a picture of, it says, my father is mean but honest. I said, that's what this refers to, is my coming to this bank with a bank to get change from my father's barber shop, and he sent me back here to return it because there was an extra roll of quarters in there. He takes the book and he looks at it. He said, my God. He said, where can I get one of these books? I said, I always carry one with me. You can have this one for $40. I'll autograph it for you. So he gave me the $40 and I gave him the book. So I went back in my car and got another book to take it up to the studio. I'm what they call, I have 2 cases of books in the car. And then I'll give you another quick one, George. I was in the supermarket not too long ago, and the guy taps me on the shoulder. He said, are you Dr. Plomaritis? And I said, yes. He said, I heard you on the radio show the other day, and I went over to Barnes & Noble, and they told me they sold out. This is in Nashville, which is only about 10 miles from Pelham. And he said, I went over, and he said they reordered them, but they don't have any in stock. He said, "Wait, do you know where I can get one?" I said, "Yeah, you stay right here. I'm going to go in my car, and I'll bring one in to you." So when I came back, he was right there by the meat counter with his wife, and they had a cart right next to the meat counter. And I bring in a book, and I'm looking for a place that's level enough so I can autograph it for him. So I see his cart right there, and he got a leg of lamb right on the top. So I put the book right on top of the leg of lamb, and I autograph it for him. And I said, how appropriate can this be? Autographing Titus Plomaritis in a supermarket on top of a leg of lamb. And the supermarket belongs to Mike Dumoulis's family. Now, I'll get into that story a little bit later, but I'll tell you, but this is interesting how people have touched me on the shoulder. And almost every day, I go to my country club. Yesterday, one of my friends, his father, now going back when I was playing football in high school, had a shoe shine parlor across the street from where I used to work. And we used to talk all the time. And when I started playing football, he went to all the games. And his name was Corvus. This is Dean Corvus from Vespa Country Club. His father's name is Vincent. And he lives out in the West Coast, out in California. So I was there 2 days ago when Vinny said to me, I said, "Vinny, you didn't get the book yet." I'm not Vinny, but Dean, you didn't get one of my books yet. He said, "I won two." He's playing golf now. He's yelling across the two holes. He said, "I won two. I want one for Vinny." I said, "Your father?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." So I delivered him yesterday, inscribed both books, and I brought him, and I gave them to him yesterday. He sent his out to his father. Now, if you need to get me started on another story, ask me another question, Joe.
Dr. T, you are delightful. I mean it. I'm just sitting here cracking up. It's just you're delightful, for lack of a better term. I love it. I love it. Your father never saw you play one football game.
Never saw me play ball. Christ, my son Stephen played football up in Colby College, which is Waterville, Maine. That's like a 4-hour drive each way. I never missed a game. My wife and I, Claire and I, went to every single athletic event. And then Titus Jr. was in Vermont. He played football in high school, and he became an exceptionally good golfer, and so was Stephen. But Titus was up in Vermont. He skied on the ski team for 1 year, and then he switched to golf. He played golf for 4 years, and he was captain his junior and senior year. But we went to every single event that he played in, no matter where it was in New England. Same with Stephen. And boy, when you think of a difference, my father never saw me play in high school or college, or I played in two all-star games, never seen me play. And I think of most fathers would kill to watch their kids play. I know I would. I wouldn't kill anybody, but I'd do anything to go see him play. But that's true. He never saw me play. My mother, she did. My mother went to a couple of games, and she saw me play. But that was later on when I stopped living at home. When I came back from the military, I couldn't live there because my father was too domineering, and I just felt so. I got a room in a rooming house in Lowell, not too far from a little lunch cart, and near the South Common where all my friends were. So that's what I did, and that's why he didn't even go to our wedding when we got married. So I was at arm's length from my father for my whole life until very, very late.
So when you were playing high school football, you had to get home before your dad did to get the chores done. And
yes, that is so true. Because when I was 10 years old, I think it'd be a good judge if I could just take a step back. Mm-hmm. When I was about 7, I'd say between 6 and 8, right in that area, I would always be on the South Common in Lowell looking for someone to play catch with, football. And if I couldn't play catch with, if I couldn't throw it to someone, I'd say, "You throw it to me and I'll catch it." And when there was nobody there, I'd go over to the baseball backstop. Now, you got to understand, this is very important. The baseball backstop is 19.5 or 19.9, almost 20 feet tall. The crossbar on the goalpost is 10 feet. I would go over there every single day when I could, and I would put the ball, if there was no one to play catch with, or either pass or catch or run or pitch or whatever, I would go over there to the backstop, and I'd try to kick it up. And I did this day after day, week after week, month after month, and would you believe it took me 4 years, and I finally kicked it over that backstop. I honestly did. And that was an outstanding accomplishment. Because later on, I might as well just tell you right now how that helped me all the way along. Because later on, when I went to high school and I was only a freshman, they had tryouts when I was a freshman now. And the coach said all the backfield men over on the left and all the linemen over on the right. There was about 100 kids that tried out for football. And I see, 75 kids or that many go over where the backfield is. And only about 15 or 20 kids over where the linemen are. So not being a great mathematician, no matter how stupid you are, you could put in your head, it takes 7 linemen to make a line. So they didn't even have enough people over there to have 2 lines. I said, I got a much better team making the line than I do making the backs with 75 kids over there. So I went over with the linemen. And that driving force from that same determination from Titus at the South Common Playground made the team as a freshman as a guard. I had to be one of the smallest guards in the whole United States, but I was not afraid to get my nose bloody. I'd stick my nose in anything. When the coach said, I need a line over here, I'd always run out, and he'd always push me aside because I was the smallest kid there. But I said, I didn't care. I was just determined. And I made the team. I wasn't a regular, but I made the team, and I became the alternate place kicker. And one day, when the coach suspended the captain of the team because he got caught smoking, the coach said to me, Titus, you're going to kick. So I made my debut as a kicker. And I kicked, and they had a very light snowstorm. And the team we were playing against was a team named Worcester Poly, and they came from Worcester, Massachusetts. And most of the time, when the coaches will train their kickers, when you kick the ball, you're the safety man. You stay back. That's why most of the time, if it's either college and the professional players, when they kick, they step back. And usually if the kicker ever gets to that level, they're gone because the guys can't tackle them. So I make the kick, and I kick it about 50 yards, my first kick, which was a pretty good kick in the snow. And it didn't have a very high trajectory, but I was still young. I was only a freshman. So the guy catches the ball, and he doesn't, no sooner catches the ball, he goes about 5 steps, and I tackle him. So the guy in the press box, his name is Tom Clayton. He was they call him the voice of the Merrimack Valley. And the next day, and he said it 4 or 5 times, he says, and Titus Plomaritis, they called me Snowshoes, Titus Plomaritis makes the tackle. So they kind of ribbed me with that name for quite a while. But getting back to the South Common now, where I practice, and I finally did it. So when I went in, I made the team as a place kicker at Lowell High, and then when I went into paratroopers, now I already told you getting in there. So when I was in the paratroopers, my father had a sign for me, and they wouldn't let me go in. So I said to my father, I said, look, they pay $25 a month. I will sign that agreement over to you so the check will come to you. He said, oh, that sounds like a pretty good idea. He told me this in Greek. So that's how I got him to sign me so I could go into the U.S. Army paratroopers. So while I'm there, they're asking for volunteers. I go to Fort Bragg, and they're looking for volunteers for the paratroopers because the paratroopers are going to go to Japan. So I'm thinking about that. I said, wow. Because they told us when we signed up, it's an 18-month hitch. But if you go in the paratroopers and you relieve the troops in Japan, they reduce the term to 15 months. So I'm thinking of that. I said, wow, I could get back to high school even 3 months earlier. So I signed up for it, and you had to take a physical to pass. So I passed the physical. They sent me to Fort Benning, Georgia. I got through Fort Benning, Georgia, And then they sent me to Seattle, Washington. I get on a boat. They sent me to Sapporo, and I'm over in Sapporo, Japan. And the first week I'm there, they're having tryouts for the 11th Airborne football team. And again, there's about 150 guys that try out for it. And there's a guy named Jack Petrolia from Cohasset, Massachusetts. He's a big kid. He was about 6'5", 250 or so, and I'm 5'5", 150. He used to pick me up and carry me around the shoulders like a toy, just to because he liked me and he carried me all over the place. So the very first day of practice in Japan, they're having drills, and you got to imagine now, most of the people in the military at that time were captains and lieutenants. They're military officers in the military or professional athletes that had to go into the service to complete their military service. So I didn't have much of a chance to make the team, but I went out anyway, and I was out there, I think, 15 minutes, and one of the coaches tapped me on the shoulder, told me to go turn in my uniform and my shoes, so I did. But Jack Petrolia was out there the first day. He made the second day. He made the cuts. The third day, he was still there. So I said, geez, I'm going to, because we roomed in the same barracks. I said, I'll go over there and watch him. So I walked over. I didn't have my uniform, but I had my paratrooper boots on. I walked over, and this day, they were having the kicking drills, the punts and the kickoffs. So if you go back in that era, you probably aren't old enough, George, but Lou Groza was the best kicker in professional football at that time. Mm-hmm. And he was a straightaway kicker. He wasn't a sidewinder like they kick today. Everybody kicks at that sidewinder style. Well, I was a straightaway kicker like Lou Groza. So anyway, I'm watching him out there, and everybody on the team, all the tackles on the team thought they were Lou Groza, and they're all trying to kick it. And every time they kick it, you could hear a dead bang, go bop, bop, bop. No zip to the ball. It would be a very low trajectory. I'm looking at it. I said, Christ, nobody hit a ball more than 45 yards, 50 yards at the longest. So I started just sneaking over to the area where the balls are coming down, and one of them went astray. I said, great. I put it down without even a tee. I kicked the ground so the ball would stay up. Mm-hmm. I took a 3-step delivery, and the ball goes boom, and you could see the nice back spin way the hell up in the sky, and it went about 55 yards with a 2-step delivery. I did that 2 or 3 times in a row, and every time you hit the ball, you could hear the boom and go boom, and you're looking, the ball is way the hell up in the sky, back spinning. The coach, after 3 or 4 of those, the coach said, who's that kid down there? He said, that's that kid you took his uniform from 2 days ago. He said, give it back to him, he's our kicker. So I made the team as a kicker. And I did end up, after a couple of guys got hurt, I got some playing time late in the year. And I did actually, at the very last game, when one of the captain, he was a two-way captain, he was the captain of the team, and he was also a military captain, and he was the first string left halfback, and I had worked my way up into the second spot. And it was a very muddy day, and he stepped into a mud hole, and he turned his ankle, and he told the coach, he said, geez, I honestly don't think I'll be of much use. He said, why don't you put Titus in? He says, and you can. He knows the plays. He said, and even though it's muddy, he said, so he can probably block. He can do this and that. So the coach said to me, he came over, he said, Titus, you're going to start today. I said, oh, okay, coach. So I get in there, and the score is 0-0, and we're in the last period. I would say, can't be more than 2 or 3 minutes to go. Jack Petrolia is the tackle in front of me, and the coach calls in 3 plays in a row for Titus to carry the ball right up Jack Petrolia's butt. And Jack said to me, Titus, just follow me in. So I'm in his tail, and we were about 7 or 8 yards out. And 3 plays in a row we scored, and I couldn't get the point after off the ground because the ground was full of mud, so the point after was no good. The game ended 6-0, and I scored the touchdown. They took a picture of me totally covered with mud, and they had the ball under my arm, and they had it on the front page of Stars and Stripes, which is a nationwide, it's an overseas newspaper. Mm-hmm. I copied it, and I sent it to Lowell High School to Stanley Stocklosa, my football coach, and he shared it with Ray Riddick. He was the baseball coach. He shared it with Ray Riddick, the football coach, and Ray Sullivan, the headmaster. Before you know it, everybody in the school had copies of it. So when I got home, just to fast forward again, when I got home, Christ, they had the Lowell Sun photographer out there with a camera. They're going to take pictures of Titus returning from the U.S. Army paratroopers, going back to high school. Geez, they had a picture of me up in the air throwing a pass. It looked like I was about 6'2". So my feet, you couldn't see my feet because they were a foot off the ground. So that's the end of that story, George. Ask me another question.
Wasn't it unusual for a young fella to leave high school and go into the service and then come back again?
Yes, it was. But Ray Sullivan, who encouraged me, he double-checked with the superintendent of schools, and they said, I agree, this would be very good for Titus because this would give him a chance to go to college. Even if he didn't get a scholarship, he'd give him a chance to go to college. So they were looking out for my best interest. Mm-hmm. And the fact that in that era, because World War II ended, and the people were still over in Japan, and their lives were somewhat in danger because you still had snipers taking shots at the American soldiers. Mm-hmm. They felt that they could get those guys home. It was worth it for the military to give kids like myself an opportunity to get in and get in under the GI Bill of Rights. So that was the last opportunity that they had, and that's why I went in. They recommended it, and I thought it was a good idea. And when I get a chance, you're going to ask me a lead question pretty soon, I hope, and I'll get into telling you where I thought I grew up from a juvenile kid in the growing up in Lowell to going in the military and coming out a little different. So somewhere along the way, I know you'll ask me some kind of a question to lead me right into it.
Speaking of Ray Riddick, he was he played high school ball, he played college ball, he played for the Green Bay Packers, and he ended up coming back being the high school coach, right?
Yes. That was an interesting situation because when I played in high school before I left, we lost 19 consecutive games. 19, count them. And when I was gone is when they hired Ray Riddick. Now, he had applied for the job on 2 or 3 occasions, and they didn't hire him. I don't know what the reason was, but they didn't hire him. Now, there was a coach in Nashua, New Hampshire. His name was Buzz Harvey. And he was in line to get this job at Lowell High when at the last minute he opted to stay at Nashua. And then they took Riddick. Riddick was like the second choice. So Riddick went in there. And Riddick went on to have the most fantastic high school coaching career of any coach in the United States. He had 10 undefeated teams. And their very first team was 1948 when I returned from the U.S. Army paratroopers. That was the very first team dating back to 1890. And let me tell you this. This is an interesting tidbit, George. Lowell High School was the very first integrated coeducational high school in the United States. 1831. A lot of people listening to your show today are not aware of this, and I've been made aware of it by our new headmaster, Brian Martin. I bumped into him the other night, and I asked him if he'd send me that information. He's our new headmaster, and he sent it to me. He said 1931, and they were in a small school, and they moved to Kirk Street, which is where the school is right now. That's where I went to high school. In 1840, they moved to Kirk Street. And the first integrated African-American to graduate from Lowell High School, her name was Caroline Von Vonker, and she graduated in the early 1940s. So that's a very interesting tidbit.
Mm-hmm. If you have a comment or a question, give us a call, 302-497-3414, and we'll put you up and you can act. You can ask Dr. T whatever you want. And if someone calls Dr. T out, I'll rudely interrupt you long enough to tell you that.
Okay.
That someone's calling.
Well, don't be afraid to interrupt me, because once I start talking about a story, it's kind of hard to stop me. So just tell me, Titus, blow the whistle or something. It's okay.
All righty. I'll find some way of doing it.
Okay.
You've got to tell our listeners this story. We got a caller. Let's see what happens here.
Okay.
You're on the George Espinlove show. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Let me
All right.
let me get you up here with
Okay.
with Dr. T.
Okay. Hi, I'm his brother from Indiana. Indiana.
Oh,
I thought I'd like to make a comment.
Let me get you up here. We are going to get you up there. I promise.
I already heard myself on the other end.
Do you? Let's see who we got here. Who do we got here?
We got Bill Moriarty from Lowell, Massachusetts, George.
All right, let me hook all you guys up here at one time.
Okay.
I'll put you there. I'll put you there. Okay, I got all three people there.
How many people you got, George?
Oh, I got three people.
Got any interesting questions?
Three people. I think you might know somebody, Dr. T. Gentlemen, are you there?
Hey, George, you there?
I'm here.
I just like to mention I'm his younger brother. You know, I'm a kid brother. I'm only 69, so you know. I thought I'd make the comment that Titus, of my older brothers, he was the one that I really got a lot of attention from, and he was teaching at the high school. When he opened up his practice, and I was a high school student at the time, and Titus spent a lot of time trying to get me to do the right things, and I kind of thought of him as being a pest. You know, when you're like that, But it turns out, as I went into adulthood, I can honestly say that many of the things that Titus had told me in my earlier years proved to be good and a positive influence. And for that reason, I think I was able to carve out a pretty good career for myself. So he was a good big brother for me. And I like to just let it go at that because someone else may want to talk.
All right. Titus, could you hear that?
Is that Tony?
That's me.
Tony, thank you, Tony. That's very nice of you.
Oh, let me tell one little story.
Hey, George, he's another saint. That's Saint Anthony.
That's St. Anthony. You got another story, Tony?
Let me have one little story.
Sure.
When I was a young kid, a little kid, Titus, when he got a car, he'd come by the house, take me for a ride.
Uh-huh.
And one day he had a friend he was going to take somewhere. And he came by the house, and he asked me if I wanted to go for a ride with. So I got in there. And, I'm in the back seat. And, being a foolish little kid, I'm playing around with the doorknob. And, back then the doors open the opposite way in the back.
Uh-huh.
So I cracked the door open, and the wind grabbed it and swung the door open. And miraculously, Titus reached over the seat and grabbed me before I fell out of the car.
Wow.
He stopped the car, and he shut the door. There was some damage there. Shut the door, never scolded me, never said anything. Went about to his business. He brought me home, and I never heard any more about it. Now, I don't remember anything before that or after that, but I remember that story.
Well, Tony, I had to do that because otherwise you wouldn't be calling in today.
Right?
Okay. Get us the next guy, George.
Okay.
Thanks for the call, Tony.
Right, bye.
That was good. That was good. All right, we got another one here. Let's see who we got going here. Okay, we got you now, huh? Let me move you down here. Titus, are you still there? Boy, I'll tell you, sometimes I amaze myself. Who do we got here? Okay. Who do we got here now?
You got Bill Moriarty here now. We got cut off.
Okay, we got Bill, and we're looking for Titus. Where'd Titus go? Titus was just here. There's Titus.
Who?
Titus, are you there?
Yes, I am. Who we got?
We got Bill. Bill, are you there? We did have Bill. We did have Bill. Bill Moriana? Does that ring a bell?
Bill Moriarty.
Yes, that's it.
He's class of 1949.
If we can just get Bill in the proper spot here. All right, we're going to have to try to get Bill. In the meantime, Titus.
Yep.
Was you surprised when your brother called?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
That was pretty cool. Let's see who we have. We have Bill. All right, let's go back here where we was. Sometimes, and if Charlie, my boy, was over there running the screen, we wouldn't have this difficulty, but sometimes when they let me do it, it's dangerous, as some people can see. I've got his number up there, but I just can't get him hooked up right. Okay, maybe he'll call back.
Who else you got?
Well, we had Anthony, and we had Bill. Let's see if Bill calls back here again. See what happens. That's who we had. We had Anthony and we had Bill. Maybe Bill will come back. I know.
Okay.
I know what we can do for the listeners while we're waiting for him to call. You were mentioned by a comedian, and I'm not so sure the younger folks have ever heard of him, but us older people, we've heard of Jerry Clower. He paid quite a tribute to you one time, and it's recorded, right?
Yes, that's true.
Well, I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, Titus, but our listening audience can hear it. And
Would you like me to give you the lead up to the recorder?
Let me see if we can get Bill again. Here he is.
Okay.
We're going to get you right yet, Bill.
Okay. Have you got me now?
I got you now. I'm looking for Titus. Titus, he just slips away from us on the screen. Titus, are you there? Tell me you're there, Titus. Hello, Titus. Let's see if we push it. Titus, are you there? No, we lost Titus. Bill, is there anything that you want me to tell when Titus comes back around here?
Well, listen, I didn't realize that I could pick up your broadcast on my computer. I'm somewhat of a computer novelist, and Titus told me that he was going to be on this internet program this evening. And he said, why don't you call in? I said, I don't know how to do that. And here I am calling in. I'm listening to the program on the computer.
Yeah.
Not bad for a middle-aged guy.
Yeah, the amazing thing is that you called in right, and the host, he can't get nothing right tonight.
Well, I got to tell you, it's been a pleasure to have gone through. I'm a classmate of Titus's, and he'll perhaps tell you about his class reunions. We're perhaps the only class of 1949 that has had a class reunion every 5 years, up until our last class reunion, and we decided we're all getting a little too old to get everyone together, and so he'll perhaps tell you about that. One of the other interesting stories that he may want to tell you about is the time that he was going down cellar to get the kerosene bottle and bring it up. Back in those days, that's how we heated the living room and so forth. And he was bringing up the kerosene bottle and slipped, and of course the kerosene went all over the cellar. So he ran out of the house, of course, knowing that his father was going to give him the blazes. And he ran across the common with the railroad tracks, and he hopped the train and think he was going to California on the train, and he thought he was on the train for hundreds of miles. And he ended up in Barica, about 7 miles away. But he's had quite a journey of life, and he's just a marvelous guy. So I'm glad you're interviewing him tonight, and I guess that's enough out of me.
All righty, Bill. Hey, thanks a million for calling in.
Okay, enjoy your show.
Thank you, and I'm going to try to find Titus wherever he went.
Okay.
I'll find him if I got to call him back. I don't know where he went, but I'll get a hold of him. Thanks, Bill.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow. Let's see. I done something with Titus. Where is Titus? Titus is on hold. Maybe he's on hold. Titus, are you there? Titus, are you there? Titus, are you there now?
Yes, I am.
I'm sorry. I'll tell you what. Letting me work these controls all by myself is like putting a drug addict in a pharmacy. It's just a dangerous situation. But I had Bill, and I couldn't find you. Sometimes, people just throw you into the mix and they say, do this, do that, do this, and do that. And then when those, these, and them all jump up, you're looking for this and that, and you can't find nothing. But anyhow, when I had Bill on there, he was telling me that you fellows were the only class that had a reunion every 5 years?
Yes. Yep, I was the president of the senior class, and Bill, if that was Bill Moriarty, he's one of my classmates.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And he said, get you to tell the story of when you went down to the basement to fill up the kerosene thingies.
Okay, I'll tell you this. You want to hear it now?
Sure.
Okay, that's another true story. Everything in the book is true, but it would tie in because my father was mean, and many times when he'd come from the barbershop was only 100 yards from the house, and when he'd walk in the front door, many times I'd go right out either the bedroom window or go out the back door, and I'd run all the way to the.
Oh no. What happened? Oh, we lost them again. Ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize. Let me see what I can get going here. Boy, oh boy, they give me this equipment. They should know better than to give Espinlove something like this. I need my I need my operator. I do apologize. My goodness gracious. Here he comes. Here he comes. Titus, we got you back now, right?
Yep, I'm right back again. I don't know how much you heard.
I'm sorry. You was going down to the basement.
Okay, I went out. All right, I got down through the first flight of stairs, and you had to go outside and then come back in through a bulkhead door, and then there was about 4 steps there, and then you had to walk. You had to reach up and pull a chain. We had a string up there that went across to the light, and you put the light on. The light was over near the kerosene barrel. So then you'd walk over there and fill up the bottle, and when you're going out, now you got 2 doors. You got the little door where the kerosene is, and then you got the door outside you have to lock. So when I was going up, coming back, the bottle was filled, and I'm coming up, there's like 2 steps inside. It's a dirt cellar, and I'm coming up, and I'm reaching up to pull a chain, and I slipped, and the bottle broke, and the kerosene poured all over me, and the bottle was broken. It scared the shit out of me. I got so scared that I didn't know what to do, and like I usually would do when I thought I was going to get a beating or getting a strap on the butt, I'd take off and go to the South Common. I started running, and I ran toward the South Common, only this time instead of stopping, I kept going. I went right by the factory where my mother worked as a stitcher, and I went down a hill where the railroad tracks were, and I sat there. I was panting, and I was scared. I didn't know what to do. And a few minutes later, a train was going by, a freight train. So I jumped on the freight train, and I stayed on there, and when I thought I was in California, I jumped off. And I was only 5 miles up the road. I was in Billerica, Massachusetts. And you got a young kid like that, I thought I was crazy. I thought I was way the hell out on the West Coast somewhere. So I'm walking in the tracks now, and it's pitch black, and all of a sudden, there's a light on my face, and it's coming from a cruising car. There was a police car there with a spotlight, and it was on me. So the policeman comes over, and he asked me what I was doing there, and he said, "What's that smell on you?" And so I explained it to him, and he was very kind. That's why I said earlier that I totally gained respect for the policeman. Prior to that, I used to call them flatfoots and throw tomatoes at him and do all kinds of crap. But that policeman was so kind, and he took me over to the police car, and I told him I was petrified my father was going to kill me, and he said, "Your father's not going to hurt you, believe me." So he took me. He was so comforting and so kind. I still envision the guy being so kind to me. So he took me in the car, brought me to the police station. Then he called the Lowell police station. They made arrangements to meet me at the town line, Billerica Lowell line, which is only a couple of miles up the road. And then they took me to the Lowell police station. Then they took me to the house, and the policeman took me right in there and explained the whole thing to him to make sure, and reiterated that I'm not to be punished for this because it was an accident and the whole bit. And I remember like it was yesterday. Then I said I didn't get a beating that night, but I'm sure in hell he had to deduct that from my shoe shine earnings, because when I shined shoes, I had to give him the money, and he said he would put it in the bank, and the only time he would take it out is if I get into damage, like I break a window playing baseball in the backyard or something like this. So that's that story. It was kind of interesting, and it's still in my memory, very close in my memory.
Give me the lead up to Jerry Clower's story.
Okay, this is a good lead. When we got through playing at Lowell, we had, I said earlier, it was the first undefeated team in the history of Lowell High School. And this goes back to 1890. I'll go back 1 week, because I can continue the story if you don't mind. I think it'll be better.
Sure.
We won, we were playing the game prior to the Thanksgiving rival game. It was in Quincy, Massachusetts. And it was kind of a drizzly day. It was a little bit of, it wasn't pouring, but it was a light rain, if you will. And we're having a miserable first half. And they had a reasonably good team. And they had, I think, maybe lost 2 games, and we hadn't lost any. And there was some stipulation that we could get sidetracked thinking ahead to the Lawrence game. And I think that's probably what happened, because I had fumbled twice in the first half, and we were trailing at the half, 9-0. and you've got to remember now, we're undefeated going into that game, and we're trailing 9-0.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in the dressing room, and the coach is giving us a little pep talk, and they're just getting ready to break out with the rah-rah logo. Everybody usually jumps up from the chair, and we all yelling, and we're waving our hats and our hands, and we're running out. Well, as everybody's jumping up and they're running out, Coach Riddick, and I tell you, he's a big guy now. He weighed 265. He's a big guy. He played professional football. He puts one of his big paws on my shoulder. I'm sitting on the bench there, and I can't move. I can't get up. He's got me stuck to the chairs, to the bench. And when everybody else run out, he leans over to me in my ear and he says, "Titus, hang on to the effing football." And I said, "Oh, my God. Okay, Coach." And I got so zipped up, and this is where that driving force come into play. Remember I told you earlier about trying to kick that ball over the goalpost, how it took me 4 years to do this? Well, I could feel that same energy coming back. I could really feel it. And I went out in the second half of that game, George, and I accounted for 3 touchdowns. I scored a touchdown. I threw 2 touchdown passes. I received 2 punts, kamikaze style, like Daredevil style. I caught him on a dead run that set up 2 touchdowns. I kicked 4 point after touchdown, and we ended up winning the game 28-9. And that led up to the big rival game of the Lowell Lawrence game. Now, the Lowell Lawrence game was a great rivalry, and it always was. You could lose 9 games. Like before I left for the paratroopers, we lost 9 straight games, and the only game we won was against Lawrence, and that was a big upset. So anytime those 2 teams come together, anytime either team could win because it was a great rivalry. They had an outstanding quarterback. He was the youngest of 6 brothers that played football for Lawrence High School, and he was a quarterback. And he was mentioned as all-scholastic quarterback. He wasn't first string all-scholastic, but he was an outstanding quarterback, and he had great statistics, a good runner, good passer, and a good leader. And he was a junior. We are playing this game now, and the score they are ahead, and he's accounted for all. Let's see, it was 19. He accounted for all 19 points. He threw 2 touchdown passes, and he scored a touchdown, and he's their place kicker. So he scored all 19 points, and we are losing now 19 to. Let me just think now. 19-13. Yes, we're losing 19-13. There's 4 seconds on the clock. We're on the 4-yard line. In the 4-yard line, 4th down with 4 seconds on the clock. And it took 40 minutes to play the last 4 seconds. Now, any of your listeners out there know that it's almost impossible to take 40 minutes to play 4 seconds. And I'll explain that to you. The coach calls in the play. He calls my number. Okay, so I say to the fullback, his name was Brian Reynolds. He was an outstanding fullback, and he went on to play football at Harvard. And I said to Brian, take me in, because he was my lead blocker there. I said, take me in, Brian. So the number was called for me, and everybody really worked hard for it. We worked as a team. And we got into the end zone. I went into the end zone standing up, and Brian Reynolds made a key block right at the goal line. And as soon as I get in there, the place was packed with people. They had about 17,000 people, and there was no standing room only, and there were 6 deep in the track. You know, the running track they have around the football stadiums, they all have them. They swarmed on the field. They stole my helmet. They stole the football. It took 20 minutes for the police to get the people off the field and to get me another helmet and get a new ball. And I'm also the place kicker. And you remember going back to the South Common, and the same thing with the paratroopers over in Japan. Jimmy Fallon now is the quarterback. And our captain is also the center. So the captain says before we break the huddle, he says, "Okay, guys, give Titus a chance, and he can do it." So I said to Jimmy when we're coming out, I said, "Jimmy, get it down, I'll get it over." And he, sure enough, because I said the captain is also the center, he snaps the ball back. Perfect snap, perfect hole, and the ball just went sky high. And they have a picture there in the book. You can see it's about 5 or 6 feet above the top of the goalpost, not the crossbar, way up in the air. It was probably one of my best career kicks, and has gone down in history as the most dynamic and the most famous kick in the history of Lowell Lawrence. And that game, like I said, was the first undefeated team in the history of Lowell. And as it worked out, it took another 20 minutes to clear the field for the kickoff because the clock doesn't advance on the point afters. And that's why it took 40 minutes to play the game, play the last 4 seconds. And that game was I don't like to take all the credit. I did score all 20 points, and we won the game 20-19. But you got to understand that sometimes the guys that score the points get the credit. Mm-hmm. But you can't possibly get the credit for a game like that or a year like that. You had an outstanding coach, great coaching. You had an outstanding team. 4 of our guys went on to play college. 2 of them went to Notre Dame. We had an outstanding team. And we needed a coach to put that team together. And Ray Riddick was just dynamite. That's why that was the beginning of 10 undefeated seasons as his coach, leading him being the coach. And I'll talk this up one more time. The last undefeated team the Lowell High School had was 1970. And the quarterback to that team was Titus Plomaritis Jr. So Titus Plomaritis Sr. and Titus Plomaritis Jr. are the bookends to 10 undefeated seasons under the same football coach, Raymond E. Riddick. It can never be duplicated because they no longer play in Division I football. But I tell you, it's quite a thrill every time to listen to the commentators from Lowell. They got this fellow named Teddy Panis from WCAP. He's actually taken over for the voice from Tom Clayton, who was our great announcer back in that era. When we played football in that era, George, they put loudspeakers downtown Lowell on top of the big clock in the square. Sometimes they had 10,000 people down there listening to ball games.
Wow.
And when we played in our first bowl game in Jackson, Mississippi, that's where the Jerry Clower thing came in, because we played in our first bowl game down there against the Louisiana State champions. And that game was another one of those outstanding games and went right to the last second. We were trailing 12-7, and we had a drive going. We had the ball all the way to the 1-yard line, and unfortunately, we as a team fumbled. Nobody's taking the blame for it. Fumbled on the 1-yard line, and we would have automatically won the game. As it was, we lost. But we were recruited, and I was recruited heavily. I played another great game. It was like a Lowell Lawrence game, and we were recruited heavily. And I was recruited by Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, all the southern schools. In Mississippi State, they had a guy named Chaz Luckett. He owned Luckett Seed and Feed Grain Company. And he had a nice looking daughter too. And they come over to me after the game and they said, "We'd like to take you out to dinner." And I said, "I can't do that without the coach's permission." So we went over as a group, asked the coach, and the coach kind of thought he had a nice looking daughter too. He said to me, "Titus," he said, "you can go, but you got to make sure you make curfew." We had curfew, I think it was at 10 or 10:30. I said, and Mr. Luckett said, "Yes, we will absolutely get him back here." So that purpose of that was to get me to visit Mississippi State during the February vacation, the school vacation. And to step ahead, they worked out all the details. They sent me plane tickets. And at that time, George, they didn't have jets. They had prop planes. So they sent a ticket for me, and the coach, Ray Riddick, said to me before we left, he said, "Titus, whatever you do, don't make a commitment. Those are his last words. Don't make a commitment. There's a lot of schools that are interested in you, but get on there and enjoy the free ride. He said, get on there and enjoy yourself. He said, enjoy it. He said, they're going to give you room and board, and they're going to feed you and take you all over the place. Enjoy it, but don't make a commitment. So fine, I get down there, and Jazz Luckett meets me at the airport, and they really gave me the royal treatment. They took me in one of those limos. At that time, limos weren't like they are today, but it was still a limo. They took me, drove me to the campus, and they had the speakers inside the cafeteria and inside the commons and in the bookstore. They had the loudspeakers going. Titus Plomaritis from Lowell, Massachusetts is here visiting the campus. He is attending Mississippi State. I give him all kinds of stuff like that. So I worked out with the team for the whole week, and on that Saturday, they had the big team scrimmage, and they had about 40,000 alumnus in the stands. It was a regular game scrimmage. They had the officials, and the coach posted it in the locker room, 66 players that were going to play in that game. And he divided them up. The first, third, and fifth team, the odd teams, were all in red. The second, fourth, and sixth teams were all in blue. So I was listed as the sixth string left halfback, and the coach told me that I would be doing all the kicking for the blue team. They wanted me primarily as to play in that game as a kicker, because I, like I said earlier, I was a premier kicker in that area. If that's all I had to do, kick, and it was in this era, I'd be $1 million kicker, because I could get the ball in the end zone every time, and I had the high trajectory. And from 40 yards in, at that time, I was very accurate. Anyway, I ended up in there. I was sitting on a bench. The coach had all the blue players on the right of him and all the red players on the left of him. And on the opening kickoff, the guy that's the first left halfback, he gets injured on the kickoff. So the second string, and they had to play both ways in that time, Judge. They didn't have the offensive team and the defensive team. So about 5 minutes into the game, the second guy gets hurt. So the coach's name is Jazz Luckett. They had these peculiar names. Jazz Luckett. He looks over to me. He said, Titus, my boy, you all want to play some ball? And I said, yeah, Coach. He said, get in there, boy. So I go running into the field. I don't have a helmet on. He said, get back here. Get yourself a helmet, boy. So I run back in. I didn't have a helmet. So the manager opens his duffel bag. He takes out a hat, and they're all big ones. So he stuffs it with paper, puts it on my head. The helmet's down to the bridge of my nose. I go in there, and I play 55 minutes in that game, George. And it was almost like the Lowell Lawrence game all over again. I scored 3 touchdowns. I kicked 4-point afters. I played the whole game on defense. And on the very last play of the game, I'm playing defense, and I can sense the first-string quarterback was in. He played the whole game for the other team. And he's a big guy. He was a big sucker. He was, at that time, 6'2", was a huge quarterback. He weighed about 215 or so. I could see the sense, because I played safety, and I played the whole game on defense, too. And I'm back there, and I can see that everybody's going to the left, and I can see him drifting over to the right with his right hand by his side. And sure in the hell, it was a bootleg. Now, it's between him and me. I'm back there, and I said, Jesus, I'm no way in hell I'm going to let this guy get by me. So I kind of put my electronic beam, if you will, right below his knees. And rather than wait for him, I went in as hard and as fast as I could. He was big, but he wasn't shifty. So he's just coming straight ahead. So I went right at him, and I hit him right below the knees. And he went up in the air, came down, landed on his head, and he was out cold. It took about 5 minutes to revive him. But in the meantime, my friggin' arm was paralyzed. I broke my shoulder. I didn't know it at the time. I broke my collarbone, and my arm was tingling, but I always jumped up on my feet. I was always like a spry kid. I jumped up. I didn't want to show the enemy I was hurt. So I jumped up, and very shortly thereafter, they blew the whistle. The game was over. I'm in the shower now. I can't take my shirt off, so I tell the trainer, would you please cut my shirt? I can't lift my arm over my head. So he cuts off my shirt. Now, I'm in the shower, and the trainer comes back, and he said to me, He said, Titus, the coaches want you in the coaches' room. And I said, as soon as I finished my shower, he said, Titus, they want you in here now. So I grabbed a towel and wrapped it around my waist. I walked in the coach's room. Holy mackerel, there's 5 coaches. They're all stark naked, and they're sitting on little low stools, and they're all puffing cigars. Their testicles are hanging to the floor. They said, Titus, my boy, we want you here in Mississippi State. We want you here. We're going to make you an All-American. And they were coming over one accolade after the next. And all I'm thinking to myself is, Ray Riddick, Titus, don't make a commitment. And I said to myself, how the hell am I going to get out of this? So every time they say something, I'd use an excuse. I said, my father doesn't speak English. He told me I couldn't do anything without his permission. And that was a big lie. But I had told him one after the other, and eventually they let me out of there. Now, to fast forward again, I leave the building. My arm is in agony. And when I get outside, Jazz Luckett's out there with a small group of his alumni, and they are thrilled to death with my performance out there, and they're all congratulating me and something, and I'm trying not to look hurt. I got my right hand in my pocket because it was killing me. So anyway, because the plan was that I was going to stay with him that night, and they were going to take me out to dinner, and the next day he was going to drive me to the airport so I could get back to Lowell. Well, that night, we went out to dinner. We got home at about 1 o'clock in the morning. I can't stand the pain anymore, and I'm moaning. So his daughter comes in there. She was in the next room. She comes in. What's the matter, Titus? I said, oh, my arm is sore. So she runs in and she gets her mother and father. They both come in. And I said, I don't know. I said, there's got to be something wrong. I said, I just can't tolerate the pain. And my pain threshold is very good. So they took me to the hospital, and sure as hell, it was a fractured collarbone. It was really bad. And I had one of these incidents way back when I was a kid, when it's an earlier story in the book, when I was roller skating on Summer Street, and I went head first into a manhole cover, and I broke my shoulder there. And my friend Bootsy took me to the hospital with his parents and the people from Saunders Market. And that was the first episode. In the book, when I wrote the book, I said, there's another episode that comes along later. Well, this is the one that came along later. And that's really the story that leads up to the recording of Jerry Clower. Now, it's 20 years later, and Jerry Clower comes out with a live album. They have him back to Mississippi State. He becomes a very famous Southern humorist. He took a business course, and he was in business, and he worked for a fertilizer company. And every time they'd have a convention or something, he'd be the MC. And he became so popular and so good at being an MC that they convinced him to be a comedian. So he went on to become a very famous comedian. They call him Jerry Clower. So when they had him back to Mississippi State, like it's Ted Williams back to Fenway Park in 20 years, he goes back there and he cuts a live album, Ambassador of Goodwill, and on side one, cut one, the story is Titus Plomaritis. And he tells a funny story about him trying to tackle me. And that's the lead story into that recording.
And here's the recording.
Ladies and gentlemen, Marcel Ledbetter's favorite friend, Uncle Versy's favorite nephew, and Mississippi's favorite son, Jerry Clower.
Good gracious alive. Woo! I some kind of something or another love every one of you. I don't know of any place I had rather be than right here. And for me to do a show at Mississippi State University is just like throwing a rabbit in a briar patch. Because I have been here before. I played football at Mississippi State University back in, And I remember back in the spring of 49, we had 13 weeks of spring training. There was a lot of walk-ons, and every Saturday at the big scrimmage, we did the best we could to hold our position because there's so many walking on going out for football. I was afraid they may break my plate and give it to one of them. So I was putting out all I could, and one day a fellow walked up. His name was Titus Plomaritis, and he was from up in New England. And that was the runningest thing I have ever seen in all my life. He would reverse the field sometimes just to show us how he could run through us, just getting it. Oh! And they pitched the ball to him one time on a quick pitch, and I was playing left defensive tackle. And I busted through and got him around the waist and commenced to squeezing him and was going to take him down to the ground. And about that time he wiggled and went straight up in the air, come down in my back and stomped me and bellied back around to the other side. And I was laying there beating the ground with my fist and hollering. And my teammate, Dog Owen, said, "Jerry, get up and chase him." I said, "Lay still. He'll be back by here in a minute." Oh!
That's hilarious. Lay still. He'll be back here in a minute.
I thought it was funny. I tell you, what's even funnier than that is that when the first time we heard about it was Claire and I were at home, and one of our dear friends, his name is Dick Dunno, he is an attorney, and his birthday is also July 20th, like my wife's, and we used to go out to dinner on the birthday. And he's an attorney, and he working for Nike, and they had some kind of a business meeting over in Hawaii, and he calls up the house, and he says to Claire, "Claire, you won't believe it. I just came back from Hawaii." He says, "And I'm up about 30,000 feet. He says, and I'm on my way home." He said, "Miss, I got the comedian channel on there, listening to some of the comedians." He's like, "I got my eyes closed, and I'm almost ready to fall asleep." When this guy comes up, a funny story about Titus Plomaritis. He said, "I figured Titus is on a plane. I get up, I look to my left, I look to my right. I figured he's on a plane playing a joke with me." He said, "No, this guy's on there. He said, you got to listen to it." And it didn't take long before it went nationwide, Judge. It played all over the country. But what I wanted to make a comment relative to many times, I talk about Claire. I dedicated the book to her. Mm-hmm. And I've had 2 or 3 times when I've been interviewed or if I'm speaking somewhere, and they say to me, "Titus, aside from yourself, who's the most interesting person in your life story, and why?" And I love to say this, George, and I'd like to say it to my audience right now, whoever's listening, and say that there's many exceptional characters that touch my life, a lot of good ones, and if you read the book, you'll see it. But along the way to this lengthy journey, there's no one, absolutely no one, as close as my precious wife, Claire, my wife and my partner for over 60 years. And I don't know if she's listening or not, but if she is, that's how much I love you, Claire. And I never lost that love for you.
That's tremendous.
I told her she had to leave the house tonight because I didn't want to hear. She makes me nervous when she's in the house. And I said, I want to give George my best performance if I can.
Oh, that is so, so nice. Dr. Titus, tell us one more time where we can get the book.
You can get the book on Amazon.com. You can get the book in Barnes & Noble, but I'd appreciate it if you would write a $40 check and send it to Plomaritis Family Foundation, and I will send you a personalized, autographed copy, and that includes the postage, right to your door.
Now you can't beat that with a stick.
Now, George, I'd like to, before, I don't know if you're ready to shut me off or not, but if you are, I would like to mention that the Lowell Sun has been very kind to me. It's our local newspaper, and the editor, the publisher, and the editor of the paper is Jim Campanello, and the sports editor, his name is Dennis Whitten, and he wrote a very, very nice article that came out on Thanksgiving morning, and that's the day I launched my book. It was on 50,000 doorsteps on that morning. And he tells a very nice story, and he goes on to state that Plomaritis is like a real-life Forrest Gump, showing up in worlds of athletics, politics, war, medical science, and more. He goes into the whole story, and then he says it's an incredible story, and an 83-year-old man has such immaculate recall of events covering his entire life. And if you want to read, these are his words now, about an amazing historic life, pick up this book. It's a real keepsake. I couldn't thank him enough for writing such an article.
That's tremendous. That is tremendous. You have two sons that are orthopedic surgeons?
That's correct.
And a daughter that is...
I have two daughters, and they're both educators. Now, my youngest daughter just got her Ph.D. from Northeastern College, right up here in Boston, because she teaches English in Plymouth High School. She's a great kid. We have the four kids. They're all four outstanding children. And when you go back now, geez, I'd like to kind of make a connection here. We'll go back to when my father, his educational mentality was that when you became 14 or 15 years old, it was kind of an old country trait, so I don't totally blame him for it. You had to take the kids out of school and help support the family. When you got 7 kids, that's a lot of mouths to feed, and it's not easy to do that on a barber's pay. So that's what he expected. Now, the reason why I say this, I'm forgiving, and I'm saying that I don't hold any grudges, because when how am I going to say this now? It's the type of thing that the fact that we were kind of denied to get an education with the blessing of our parents, that's the best way I can say it, that we didn't have to push our kids. They all wanted to go to school, and we told them you can go to any school you want. As it ended up, we have 4 kids that went to 4 different high schools, George, and they went to 4 different colleges. So that's probably another thing you never heard of before. And the reason why they went to 4 different high schools is because when I first came back from chiropractic college, I came to a small community. It's only 5 miles from Lowell, Massachusetts. So my whole life was in that Lowell community, because we consider ourselves Greater Lowell. We're only 5 miles from downtown Lowell. And at that time, Pelham didn't have a high school, so the kids in Pelham would go to Lowell High or to Tingsville. They had 2 options. So Titus Jr. wanted to go to Lowell High because he wanted to play football. So he went to Lowell High. And then Lynn, he had a chance to go into a school in Hudson, New Hampshire. So when Lynn came second, she went to Alverin High, which was in Hudson. And then when Stevie came along, he wanted to play football, and Lowell wouldn't take him anymore, so he went to a Catholic school in Nashua. He went to Alverin High School. And while I'm on that topic, he's the one that took care of Nancy Kerrigan as an orthopedist when she had her knee banged. And he became very famous across the whole country. So he went to Alverin High, and then the youngest one, Diane, she was in the first graduating class of Pelham High School. By then they had a high school. Then they went to 4 different colleges. And we enjoyed paying their bills. So all 4 kids went through college, and none of them come out with debt, George, which is something I'm very proud to say. That was their inheritance.
Titus, you have lived a fantastic life. God has just blessed you so much. I am glad, and I don't know if I can find the words to say this. Glad doesn't kind of cut it, but for lack of a better term, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart that we touched with each other and you came on the show. I've read your book, I've read some other material, and I've listened to you. And because of you, sir, my life has been enriched. You're an inspiration, And I believe that everyone that's listening to this show live and everyone that will listen to it later on will be able to say the same thing. You have enriched lives across this country, and I'm sure around the world. I tip my hat to you, Doctor.
Thank you, George. Those are kind words. I really appreciate that.
I mean them from the depth of my heart. And we would like to have you come back sometime.
I would love to, and I could tell you now. I can tell you all the chiropractic stories.
Yes. And lady,
I got some great stories about my chiropractic profession, about accreditation and the involvement with the President of the United States. There's a lot to talk about. And you can tell I like to talk. I talk to anybody who listens to me.
And ladies and gentlemen, do yourself a favor and get the book, Titus. Oh, it's a tremendous book. It'll make you laugh. It'll bring tears to your eyes. It'll find every emotion you have and bring it out. So do yourself a favor, and I'll announce it before we sign off tonight where you can get the book. You have been a delight. I apologize for messing up Mr. Bill's phone call.
You're forgiven.
Thank you. I'm gonna have to get Charlie to show me which slide to move up over where. My goodness gracious. But anyhow, I apologize for that, and I thank you, sir. Please give my regards to your family.
I will.
And to everyone up your way. And God bless you, and please stay in touch and come back again.
Okay, George. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate your show, and I hope your listeners out there will send in some $40 checks to my foundation, because I'd love to send you autographed copies of the book. And that money I don't get a dime out of that, but someday there'll be another little Titus that comes along, and he may need assistance.
That's true.
And you will be part of that. Your $40 will be part of that contribution to his education. Thank you very much, George.
Thank you, sir. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Titus Plomaritis. He's a giant of a man. He really, really is. I was looking for something else over here. Boy, when they give me this kind of stuff, it's just it's dangerous. And I apologize to Mr. Bill for losing him. I apologize to Dr. Titus for losing him. Well, I can lose some people, but thank goodness we got him back and we made it all the way through. It has been a delight. I'll be back in just a minute. I got to catch my breath.
take you from where you are to where you wanna be. 'Cause radio works. Radio works. We'll take you from where you are to where you wanna be. 'Cause radio works. Radio works.
Yeah, it do. Radio works. It works. I want to thank everyone that has taken the time to tune in tonight and hang out with us. It was a delightful show, to say the least. You need to get the book. It's simply entitled Titus, Titus. It's written by Titus Plomaritis. He's a giant of a man. It's about 537 pages long, but it is filled. It is filled with excitement. It's filled with some drama. It is filled with real live human interest stories. You'll love it. It's the story of a man who was an immigrant son, a football legend, a presidential confidant, and a highly honored chiropractor. And I'll throw this in, a man who loves his family with all of his heart. And him and his wife has been married for 61 years. I think that's just fantabulous. That's an Espinal word, fantabulous. The life story of Dr. Titus Plomaritis. I'll get it. Get it. Go to his website, Titus, that's Titus, Plomaritis, PLOMARITIS.com. Get you a copy of that book. Follow the instructions right there, and you'll get an autographed copy from Dr. Titus, and you will be doing a world of good. I want to thank Anthony for calling in. That is Dr. Titus's brother, and Mr. Bill for calling in. And I got Bill all messed up there. Of course, I was all messed up. So, if I'm all messed up, I'm going to get everybody else messed up because I'm running this crazy board over here. They'll either let me practice before they let me have that thing again, or somebody else is going to do it. I'm just saying. But nonetheless, I apologize to our technical difficulties that we had. It's been a real treat. I want you to come back and be with me tomorrow night. It was fun. I laughed. I spent a lot of time laughing. And I really, really enjoyed tonight. What an individual. Well, if we had more people like Titus Plomaritis, what we could do. But each and every one of us is an individual, and each and every one of us can do what we want to do if we just get up and do it. Do it. Look through the obstacles, look beyond the heartaches, and reach for it. Go for it. And you will surprise yourself what you're capable of accomplishing. I want to say thank you to Charlie for letting me in here all by myself tonight. Really appreciate it, buddy. Shouldn't have laughed at you so much the other night. I'm terribly sorry. But anyhow, I want you to join me tomorrow night, same time, same station, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Spreaker.com. Come on back for another George Espinal show. I'll see what I can mess up tomorrow night, too. Wherever you're at, if it's nighttime, you have a great night. If it's already daytime where you're at, then you have a fine day. But regardless of where you are and what it is, till tomorrow night, this is George Espinal challenging you. Please stay safe. Don't take no wooden nickels. May God richly bless you. And good night, everybody.